Good morning to all and welcome in this Erage School, the school for lawyers in the Grand Est region. I would like to welcome all those who are in this room, in this auditorium, but also the many participants who via teletransmission and video conference will attend this seminar, The Lawyer at the Heart of a Europe Protecting Against Injustices. And as you know, this seminar has been organized on the occasion of the French presidency of the European Union, and I'm very happy that this seminar is taking place with people in the auditorium, because you know that the sanitary measures have been adjusted and have been defined. Notably, there was a seminar, a conference that was to take place in Strasbourg, and the public powers have decided that until the end of January, all such conferences will happen on video conference, and I have insisted, and we've been allowed to organize this here in Strasbourg in presence. So I would like to thank all the speakers who will take part today and all the participants, and I would like to hand the floor to Jérôme GAVAUDAN, the President of the National Council of the Bars. Thank you very much, Mr. President of this delegation of the Council of the Bars of France, Mr. the President of the Bar of Strasbourg, Mrs. the President of the Bar of Paris, dear Bruno HUCK, the President of the Conference of the Bars Presidents, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends. It is customary when we are together as lawyers to consider that the European Union is a continent based on the rule of law, built on the rule of law, inhabited by the law, by the rule of law. It is also a deep belief that is very dear to our hearts. However, this continent based on justice, let's be realistic, is also a place of the expression of many injustices, and we must deplore that the rule of law is being contested here and there. And I believe that at the start of this year, 2022, that we wish fruitful, beautiful, excellent, with the best happiness possible in the time being. We have to look at Europe in the face of it, as France is taking the presidency of the European Union. The time of everything is going fine is behind us, and the reality is jumping to us. Europe is being threatened from its inside, and for many citizens who are helped and supported by politicians and stances that relay Europe as a threat to citizens. And in a very sad way for many of our politicians, it is the scapegoat of the globalization and such things. But it is very pregnant today. And yes, we as lawyers, legal practitioners, we have to address this reality for the face of it. This Europe that was to protect citizens against injustices is now considered, and this is wrong, is being considered as intrinsically unjust. And that feeling of injustice is sweeping everything away. With the help of the Foundation Jean Jaurès, Fondapol, the Institut Montaigne, and IFOP, have organized this, and I wish that the DBF will perhaps convey the compared analysis with other countries so that we have a global picture. According to polls, 71% of the French population thinks that injustice is progressing in the country, and a large number of the population tend to think that the fundamental rights are being swept away and do not trust the justice system anymore, which is why the French president have launched this general conference of the justice system. And this feeling within the population is really endangering our democracies, renouncement to the rule of law, and out of fatigue in the crisis, the economic crisis, the sanitary crisis, the population renounces on assert their rights and even renounce on their right to vote. And this is a concern to us because it leaves the field open to political positions that are not pleasant to us, that we deplore, and that we should fight with all the possible tools and our own reflection. And how could Europe fight against injustices if it is considered as one of the sources of these injustices? I have said this many times, and I will say it solemnly today again before you. What is at stake in the next weeks, in the next month, here in France, but also elsewhere, is really the permanence of our corpus of the rule of law within Europe. We are abashed, and we should say and state it over and over again. Many countries, several countries, dare to put in question the fundamental rights and systems of the European construction. And here in Strasbourg, that must be stated again. The Convention for Human Rights is threatened in its own existence. And even in France, we hear candidates, and not just in the extreme parts of the political spectrum, we have candidates that put into question without this taboo being shocking to them. They tend to put in question the higher courts' rules, and some even propose to get rid of these constraints, of these systems. And we know that it is not a constraint. We know that the conception of freedom and fundamental rights for human beings in Europe is freeing us and is not imprisoning us. So the French Council of the Bars will take advantage of this French presidency to launch an appeal to all citizens, to all lawyers in Paris. The call from Paris that Laurent will present this Friday in the General Assembly of this council, the French National Council of the Bars. And we hope that this call will be relayed by all the bars in Europe, and relaying what we support, the European values that we want to defend, that we want to bring forward everywhere in Europe. And we will remind that it is to the European Convention for Human Rights, sitting here in Strasbourg, we owe the presence of the lawyer during custody, the administration of justice in a reasonable time frame, the equality of right for all children, the equality of right for parental leave, the depenalization of homosexuality, the suppression of outrage to the French, to the President of the French Republic. This right is protecting us, and we should defend it. It is up to us to make known these progresses to our own citizens, and we are working on this at the National Council of the Bar. We should not be comforted in the by these closed discussions that we have sometimes, and I would like to say this with great pleasure here in Strasbourg. We have the responsibility to play urbi and orbi in the open to save the rule of law in Europe, to save it from the easy temptations, to free it from demagogic positions, but also sometimes of our own indifference, of our own indolence, our own fatigue. It is up to us to plead, and this is what we have learned to do, hopefully, and it is up to us to bring this forward with optimism, with dignity, with pugnacity, and we are going to do this together to save what Victor Hugo called the peace in Europe. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President, and I would like to give the floor to Julie Couturier. This is the President of the Paris Bar. Mr. the elected representatives, Mr. the judges, ladies and gentlemen, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, presidents and of the bars, dear Jérôme, Mr. the President of the National Council of the Bar, dear President of the Conference of the Bars, and dear Special Representative. It is a great happiness here to be together in Strasbourg in the start of the year for this first event, Strasbourg, this European city, for this event organized by the Conference of the Bars and the Bars of Paris and Strasbourg and the delegation of the Bars of France in the framework of this French President of the European Union. This French President is particularly important for the Vice Bâtonnier, for the Vice President of the Bar. And as we start our own mandate, we would like to put this mandate under the auspices of Europe. The Paris Bar is really geared towards Europe, and for the next 6 months, we will reassert this focus. The European law is not a branch of the law, but a source of the law that innerves each facet of the French law. And this is an occasion for us to focus on the European dimension of the law. And a few words on this presidency that France is taking for 6 months. We will have the Czech Republic in the later part of 2022 and Sweden with this trio of presidency. The priorities defined by this trio for the 18 next month are the protection of citizens and freedoms with the respect and the protection of European values, the promotion of a new growth and investment model in Europe based on a green and sustainable development and the reinforcement of the digital and industrial sovereignty, the construction of a greener Europe, more protective of the health of the European population, and a global Europe, a global actor promoting multilateralism and renewed relationship with its partners. So a more sovereign Europe, a more human Europe, listening to the citizens, and the French presidency has taken on these themes and has defined a detailed program to achieve this. In the field of justice, the priorities of France have been defined and are threefold: a Europe that protects, digital, and environment. On justice matters that are of interest to us, the lawyers are essential actors. As legal practitioners, their relation is fundamental between the elaboration and the evaluation of the laws, and they are critical in this. And the priorities of the profession and that of the public powers are very convergent in many cases. So we will bring forward the hatred and the fight against discrimination, a recrudescence of hatred positions on the whole of the European territory. An initiative will be presented by the European Commission to reinforce the systems in place, and the lawyers will be called upon to bring their contribution. The fight against the violences in the home, the European Union has a real value added to bring in this field. The Commission has proposed several texts about digitalization, judicial cooperation, aims at developing the digital in criminal cases and civil cases, fight against terrorism, and modernize the operations of the investigation teams. The Bar of Paris will get mobilized to face this and to enable the lawyers to develop in their practice a European reflex that is indispensable. As an extension of our work, we will propose on the 10th of February 2022 a second event organized with the incubator and the delegation of the Bars of France. Will be accessible also online. It will be the lawyer, an actor of a Europe protecting through the law. It will take place in Paris, and it will end with a night of the delegate tech because that will be important to us. We will give to this event a practical content so that our colleagues can reinforce their contribution and continue to develop this European reflex that I was mentioning in their practice. We will have workshops and plenary sessions addressing many topics. The fight against money laundering, also the European Prosecutor Office, the civil procedure instruments, insolvability procedures in particular. I would like also to inform this distinguished audience of a great competition for the young lawyers organized by the Bar of Paris and the Academy of Law in Europe and several partners, financed by the European Commission. It's a transnational contest with long pleading exercises to reinforce the competences of the young lawyers. This is open as of January 2022. The final edition will take place in 2022 in Luxembourg in the Court of Justice. And also, we will work together with legal practitioners and judges, and we will discussing this, to build a judicial community of excellence, because we promote a justice system that is based on partnerships. A cycle of training in 9 modules, bringing lawyers from France and Europe, the backdrop of European legal stakes, will take place, will start at the end of January, and will be one more occasion for lawyers to get a control of European stakes and around justice and domestic affairs. The candidacies will be centralized through our bodies. And we also have transnational initiatives with other European bars. And I would like to mention the Triangle of Weimar that was created in 2019 by the Warsaw Bar. The Bar of Paris was represented on this occasion, and the German Bar in order to follow the situation in these 3 countries and in Europe in particular. I've been in Berlin in the framework of the first open event that we organized in last September, and this is one of the focus of this trio of the presidencies for the next 18 months. That's the protection of citizens and freedoms with the respect of European values. Mr. Pavelucci seems will speak this afternoon in a passionate panel in this session about SLAP. We'll be able to recall how our values within the European Union can be threatened and how important it is for us to all together work on this. I invite you to look at the French presidency program so that we have a good idea of what will be organized. And I would like to thank the organizers of this event, the Bar of Strasbourg and the ERAGE, who is welcoming us today. It is a great success to be able to work all together in a concerted way on fundamental matters. And I would like to thank all the participants and speakers that are together with us to build a better Europe and a more powerful Europe. I wish you a very good day. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. the President of the Bar of Paris, and Bruno BLANQUER has now the floor, the President of the Conference of the Presidents of the Bar. Ladies and gentlemen, we have distinguished personalities in this audience. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear President of the CNB, dear Mrs. President of the Paris Bar, dear President of the Bar of Strasbourg, dear all. We are all together in Strasbourg to exchange on the lawyer as a pillar of the rule of law. This is really the commitment of the profession in the framework of the French presidents of the European Union. This conference of the presidents of the bar will take on this opportunity to really bring the place of the bars and of the lawyers as a result in the fight against injustices and tend towards the construction of a European rule of law. In this world crisis, with an economic crisis and a sanitary crisis, the bars should weigh in the debate and at the European level bring forward a number of topics that we will discuss today. This 6-month presidency will enable to the lawyers, the vigils of our freedoms, to bring something in this European dream of cohesion and peace, and towards a European protecting the peace, the environment, and the citizens. The protection of human rights was not in the founding text, but along the years, Europe was to promote some sort of greed from many actors in the world in this promotion of the fight against conflict. And this Europe still have some dramas and tragedies, such as the shipwrecks in the Mediterranean Sea or in the Channel, terrorist attacks, the instrumentalization of the Schengen space, the economic disparities against the backdrop of the COVID crisis, the climate crisis, a competition, an economic competition that is exacerbated. And let's bring in Robert Schuman, who in 1950 said Europe was not made. We had Europe before, and Europe will not be made in a one shot. It will be made by concrete realizations, creating a de facto solidarity. Today, Europe should draw the lessons of the failures and the successes also, maturing, evolving and rethinking the stakes in the environment and the justice. And the texts that are bound to come in the next month will determine the level of freedom and peace that we can aspire to. For all Europeans, convinced Europeans, the future of Europe will go through the adoption of a new common vision that is not short-sighted nor a closed in on oneself, and without forgetting the impulsions of the Maastricht Treaty and the Amsterdam Treaty that made the respect of human rights a condition for adhesion of new member states and introduced a procedure for suspension of some prerogative treaties in case of serious infractions. And to revitalize this European project, we will have to go through a pedagogic and a debate on what we would like it to be and what we would like it to become. Pedagogics to explain also to the citizens what Europe is, what it can do, in particular in protection against injustices, and decide also what injustices we want to fight as a priority and what will the criteria be. It is essential to promote the protection dimension of Europe, and this dimension, the lawyer can occupy its own place, its full place as a guarantor of freedoms by asserting the tools available, the standards and the procedural rules at the European level, which are more protective than the national text many times. That is often the case. To conclude, we should take advantage of this opportunity and this French president of the European Union to assert the judicial, climatic and social protection that we desire. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and I now leave the floor to Mr. Bruno HUCK, the President of the Bar of Strasbourg. Thank you, Mr. President. Lady and Mrs. President of the Paris Bar, Mr. President and dear President, and good morning to all. That will be simpler. Without delaying any further the start of our work, I would like to tell you how Strasbourg, its bar and its lawyers are happy to welcome you on this occasion organized in the first days of the European Union French presidency. What city better than Strasbourg, the seat of many institutional and European bodies, enshrining the values of a Europe, protecting of the civil rights and more generally of mankind, of men and women, could better bring us together at the heart of a Europe protecting against injustices. This place in Europe, Strasbourg acquired it progressively after having changed 4 times nationality in 75 years. Strasbourg has become the symbol of the reconciliation between France and Germany and of European unity. In 1920, Strasbourg becomes the capital of the first intergovernmental institution, the Central Commission for the Navigation on the Rhine, which seat is still in Strasbourg today. But it's after the Second World War that this resolute position of this Alsatian capital will start, and until Strasbourg becomes the seat of the European Parliament in 1979 with the signature of the Statutes of the Council of Europe. This is also an important step, Strasbourg becoming a pillar of the defense of democracy and the rule of law in Europe. And Strasbourg again, in Strasbourg, these 10 states will establish the seat of this Council of Europe institution. Ernest Bevin, Secretary of State of the Foreign Affairs in the United Kingdom, said in 1949, this is a city, Strasbourg, that more than any others has been the victim of stupidity of European nations that thought they could solve their problem through wars. And now it should be called upon becoming a symbol for reconciliation and peace. If the initial vocation of the Council of Europe is general, its action will start in 1950 with the signature of the Convention for Protecting Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms. And that convention, as you know, defines the liberties that the states commit to respect, and has an original a mechanism for any citizens to be able to file a case towards the council. And the rights guaranteed by the convention, we have the right to freedom, the right to a fair trial, the freedom of the press, the freedom to think, freedom of religion, freedom of expressing oneself and thinking, the freedom to peaceful association, and a number of other dispositions, the ban for slavery, forced labor, the interdiction of discrimination in the guaranteed rights and freedoms. The field of action is vast, and we European lawyers should continue absolutely to invest ourselves in these fights. And to paraphrase Jean Monnet, nothing can be sustained without institutions. Nothing is possible without the men and women. And I would add, nothing in justice is conceivable without the lawyers. And we have this occasion today, once again, through the organization of this meeting, to demonstrate this here in Strasbourg, in the heart of this Europe, protecting citizens against injustices of all natures. So welcome to all, welcome in this capital city of human rights, and have a good work today.